live, baby.
All right. This is episode 14 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your hosts, Brett and CH. Today's topics, we're just going to kind of shoot the shit a little bit, talk about a little bit of the FOMO that's going on in the market right now. We're going to cover a few Q&A questions that we got last week that we didn't get to go over and jump down that rabbit hole, see how it goes. And then just, talk a little bit about some macro stuff and see how it's going. But how you doing today, Brett?
Doing pretty good. As you can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, this is the 1 minute view of Bitcoin here when it went up 21% in 53 minutes. As there's an article probably mentioned later, but it was actually pretty well written. Should we just jump to Turd and Mister's comment on?
Yeah. Jump
to it. So here it is. He said, most incredible analysis of Bitcoin's recent price jump. And as I'll read it off for the podcast listeners. Gerbox, digital asset strategist at Van Eck. I probably botched his name, by the way. I'm sorry. Sees the price of the jump as a result of a short squeeze. The strategist noted that CME Bitcoin futures expired last Friday. A large chunk of positions was rolled, buying into the new front month BTC futures contract. Over the weekend, heavy spot Bitcoin and over-the-counter buying followed the Bitcoin futures contract expiration, pushing BTC price up slowly and gradually. As the price moved up in increments, over 500 million shorts have been liquidated on leveraged crypto derivative trading platforms around the world. So, I mean, that's one of the big reasons. I think there was obviously a shit ton of shorts liquidated here. When something goes up 21%, for those that don't understand trading, okay, 21% might not sound like much, but when you start factoring the people who are trading on margin, that's why when markets move like a few percent in a day, people go crazy because there's people out there who are leveraging, 20, 10, 20, 30 times. I mean, there's obviously less leverage, between 1 and 10, but there are people out there who 20, 30 times leverage. Well, someone's at 50 leverage on a 21% day, they're liquidated. That's over 100%. I mean, unless they have the margin, of course, that's a different story. But their position's screwed. Pretty much is my point. This is a huge move. And as you can see, there's literally no volume over here to the left. And you can see the price, the little candlesticks. You can't even see them here because the 1 minute candlesticks here are ridiculous. That's a simple put. I mean, this move is pretty crazy. Like someone ended up DMing me, and I was like, they were saying like, look at Bitcoin. And I'm like, what's going on? Because I hadn't checked anything, didn't have any price alerts set, and all of a sudden I look at Bitcoin and it's up at like, I think it was at, it was like 4,700. So I mean, it's pretty crazy that but this is how it's been moving lately. There's like no normalness. When Bitcoin pumps, it pumps, and when it's dumped before it's dumped. Like when we look at least what I'm speaking about is the last few months. I'm zooming out now for better perspective here whenever it loads. That's an issue. But long story short is recently all the moves, when you look at them, it's very sharp. It's not like it takes a while to build. Like when it goes up, it's going up. And not on a daily time frame, but like every update, it happens. Like when this happened on I think it was the 8th, that happened in like a few hours. It just went up. Big price movement all at once, and then settles off. Another big price movement, and then obviously here it just dumped completely. But like here we are, and might be breaking out. I think we're gonna. Oh, we're already. When we started recording this, it was like 52 something. So I mean, this is in the last hour or so. You remember Crypt CH?
Yeah. That's a good point. I was just thinking, you made a good point about the what?
I'm laughing because we're about to break out.
We are. Yeah. All right. So let me think. For anybody who's listening right now, it is Sunday, September 7th, 7 p.m.
Pacific time.
Pacific time.
There you go.
And it's moving a little bit. And you said a lot, so I wanted to talk about a couple things. One was I got a DM the night we started pumping, and Bitcoin moved to 4,700, 4,800, whatever. And everyone's asking me, "Oh, are you seeing this? What's going on? How high is it going to go?" And I was responding back like, I have no fucking clue where this thing's going to go. But it's a good point that every day you're not in the market, or holding, like you could miss these gains. And 20% is nothing to fucking sneeze at, to be honest with you. And somebody, I forget the exact metrics, but somebody did an example of if you miss the 10 largest trading days of Bitcoin per year, like what your return would have been otherwise, and they're minuscule. So you miss the 10 biggest trading days of the year for Bitcoin, that's like a 80% of the gains for the year. So you miss out on huge moves by trying to time the market and catch the bottom or sell the top. It's just very difficult to do. And I've found my anxiety level decreasing substantially by just accumulating, stacking sats and holding. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, no, I mean he's right in that. Like for the most part, trading, there's nothing easy about trading. It's when you're in long term, like CH is playing the long game. He's playing the long game, so he's just buying because at some point he thinks this is the whole thing of long term investing. You think it's going to be a higher, a much better value, and that's where he's at. That's his mindset, and that's probably the best way to go about this. It really is for the most part. I mean, as you've seen, like if I don't know what's going to happen here, to be honest. Anything's possible because, like, last year people forget this is a 3-day candlestick and went up $4,100. So
that's what I mean. Like this thing can rip faces off right away.
Yeah, I don't think people realize this is a lot. Like I'm just gonna let's do this. Let's just see how. Quarterly bars look retarded, but I shouldn't do that to us. But I'll do monthly. This is probably better, and I'm gonna turn the volume off so, you can see it. Like, who knows what the fuck's gonna happen? But that looks pretty good right now. Just looking at the monthly, it's whatever's going on, and who knows, because we've seen this before, that's why you see a lot of log charts. I'm sure Crypto and I probably see it all the time on Twitter. But so this gives you a better idea of the percentage moves. But that's scary. What do you think? Still there, man?
Sorry, I've been muted for 30 seconds. I was talking about FOMO, and I was saying, the last couple of days we've seen a little bit of FOMO creep back in, and it's hysterical. And my prediction is the next round of FOMO will be absolutely ridiculous because the numbers start to get very large. If your takeoff point is, let's say, from 5,000 as an example, and you 10x from there, the numbers get really big, and the absolute dollar amount that Bitcoin moves in a day and with those kind of percentages gets really big and face melting. And I don't think anybody's really ready to see those kinds of numbers.
Dude, yeah, I don't think people are ready.
We saw right. That's what I mean. People dude, quickly forget how wild. I don't know.
I just had that mental thought, okay, if you 20x from here, you're talking 200,000. And that's what I mean. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put that thought in people's head, but people are FOMO. I think the point is your FOMO here. This because I think there's a guy I follow on Twitter named Occupy Wisdom, and he is the most anti-Bitcoin person. He's a gold guy. I get his view. He's but you like a lot of his stuff. I don't know if you follow him, but it's just anti-Bitcoin. But when he mentions tulips with it, and as you're saying, the FOMO, I don't think people realize how bad the FOMO could get here.
No, the FOMO can get absolutely unbelievable. If you think about the fundamentals of Bitcoin in the winter of 2017, we had just gotten through the Bcash fork, SegWit 2x, the No 2x movement, the New York agreement, all that bullshit that BitPay and all them tried to pull off with doubling the block size, and they got wrecked. The fundamentals were so bad, and the FOMO was unreal, and we had 20K. Now it's 2 years later, or a year and a half later.
Not even, dude. Really?
Everyone's on Lightning. There's so much going on. Lightning is doing great. There's upgrades in the pipeline. Schnorr is coming in maybe 2020. You have nodes home-based nodes and hardware products being delivered. It's never been better to be in Bitcoin right now. So when you think about what the FOMO looks like the next time around, and I know it's wild talking about 6-digit Bitcoin, but that's where we head when you start talking about numbers like those and pumps, because the takeoff point is just so much higher. And it's either going to do that or it's not. And I think that's one thing people don't really understand. Like, how could that even be possible to get that high? It's like, well, you've got a pretty scarce fucking asset. You've got sound money, the best money we've had. And people will FOMO into it because the volatility of the world around it is only increasing. You have geopolitical risk. You have currency crises around the globe. You have a lot of shit going on. And all that volatility will go somewhere. And since Bitcoin is anti-fragile, it's going to soak it up. So as long as you can take the heat, you fucking find your seat at the kitchen, man.
Yeah, this looks pretty nuts. On the log channel, it looks pretty fucked. Because you start playing with the numbers here, when you zoom out.
They get really big. Yeah,
they
get huge. Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing. And I don't want to sound like a pie in the sky kind of thing. It's more like, no, that's the reality.
Yeah.
It's either going there or it's not. If it doesn't, Bitcoin's over, it's done, you know? We either trek on and keep moving forward and the price will rise substantially because it's going to be global money, or it's not going to be global money. And I am totally wrong about the whole thing. And, that'll be the last episode of the podcast when I come to that realization, and that'll be it. But
we can just call it beef.
Yeah, we just renamed the podcast to beef, and I don't know what the fuck we would talk about, because I would be pretty sad. I've got a lot riding on this. This is such a game changer technology. It really is. Think about a money that anybody can use that is not monopolized by anybody. It's just super fucking powerful, and nobody is really putting that together. Even the people who are in this space, who are just speculating on it, thinking, oh, it might be worth something. You're not on it, man. Like, it's going to be such a game changer.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, as you said. I mean, if we break out here, that's gonna be interesting. Like, when you zoom out there, it's like just as you said, it's either going there or it's not going there, and that's the issue people don't understand. Like, it's not gonna. Bitcoin doesn't sit still really well, and you can just look at that chart right there. It doesn't just kind of hang out, or we're either really going or it's it's a big. I mean, I know it looks crazy here, but like, that's why like the log channel changes everything up. But still, like, that's why I try to mention to people is like last year the candles got ridiculous. Like, it just didn't it didn't make any sense is what it did, and that can happen again really easy, as you said. Price drives adoption, and it 100% does.
Right.
Like, if we hit 10,000, people are going to go crazy. Like, it's not gonna. We're not gonna just hit 10,000. If we hit 10,000, it's gonna like go. Because there's going to be a FOMO back in a sense.
For sure. All right, listen to this tweet from Armin van Bitcoin. Whales FOMO'd already. Educated investors will FOMO between 6K and 12K. Those who bought at 20K last cycle and sold at a loss will now FOMO between 12K and 20K. Next cycle, newcomers and shitcoiners will FOMO at 100K. That's an interesting prediction. I fucking like it. I like it because the FOMO at 20K is going to be very funny. I'm curious to see who is jumping in at 20K and what's going on CNBC around then. It'll be funny to see how mainstream treats it. But yeah, that's interesting. Educated investors FOMOing between 6K and 12K. I don't wonder if... Okay, let's talk about it like this. There's a ton of cash sitting on the sidelines, and everybody knows it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got cash sitting on the sidelines waiting for one last dump. And if that dump doesn't happen, or if it does, there's a lot of fucking cash sitting on the sidelines that will move in between 2019 and 2020. And you saw what happened when, what was it, 10 like thousand Bitcoin market buy orders. I mean, pump the price 20%. What do you think happens when real money comes in?
That's a good question. It's gonna get interesting.
You know, like I mean, that was $10,000 market orders that caused that. It's that only 10 of them. Imagine when you have 100 institutional investors or more looking to get their first positions into the market.
It's definitely an interesting concept. And
like, what are they gonna fucking call each other and be like, "Oh, hey, or do you want to buy today? Because we don't want to push the market too much," right? Like, what are they gonna take turns accumulating? Seriously, shit gets out of control.
Yeah, I mean, like, so this is another thought. Like this, I mean, it doesn't go all the way back in Bitcoin history, but like where it went pretty nuts in early 2013, and then like look here, it just dwarfs it. Like, I don't think people realize how quickly the numbers can go against. As you said, like when it starts going up a shit ton of dollars in a day, as you said, like that's insane. Like you're in like,
right when you start seeing $5,000 moves in a day. I think about it. A move from 20K to 25K is what, 25%. That's a $5,000 move, and we saw that happen in an hour a couple days ago. And it's the same percentage move, but it feels bigger going from 20K to 25, right? That will really wake a lot of people up. And then, I mean, think about 25% moves taken off from 100K in an afternoon. The numbers just get really fucking massive.
Yeah, that's where like it gets really mind-boggling because, as you said, like the limited supply becomes an issue, and then the FOMO. Think about the internet. Think about how many people have access to the internet. If Bitcoin gets like again above 20K or near that number, every mainstream media outlet will be talking about it. That's what happened in December 2017. That's why you saw the FOMO into everything, was because it just became this hot topic that people talk about and became retarded for a few months. I mean, that's where it's at.
It's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen the next time. But this time it'll be even worse because you had a lot of people who were getting in January 2018, winter 2017. They were thinking about it. That might have been the first or second time they've heard about it. And they still need that third or fourth time that they hear about it to take it seriously. So the next time your average person on the street hears about Bitcoin, the price might be at 20K, the price might be at 12K. I'm not sure, but it's definitely going to be higher than it is today because price drives adoption. So if they're hearing about it, it's moving. And people need to hear about it enough times, and it needs to breach a certain price for like that mental barrier where they say, okay, maybe this is here to stay. For me, it didn't have to go that high. I don't know, 1800. I'm like, oh, wow, this thing's pretty fucking legit. Maybe it's not going anywhere. Somebody else might need to see 25K for it to click for them, or 100K or higher, you know?
I think you just cut off. Did you mute yourself?
Yeah, I just muted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Do you have it hotkeyed up or something? I don't know. No, you're muted again.
Oh, I turned it off.
Sorry. I realize I can see that you're muted when it does that.
Oh, tight! I didn't know you could see.
Yeah, I opened it up because I didn't know if it was a connection issue, or so I was like, and then I realized it's just muted. Yeah, I mean, no, as you said, we were talking about price drives adoption here, and it doesn't help when this thing pumps. It gets a lot of media attention. You got to think about social media now, how quickly things spread. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, you name it, and then mainstream media will catch on to these trends, and then they're like, "Oh, we gotta talk about it too." And you get like your local news channel talking about Bitcoin's a very big issue.
Yeah, I think that's what you're gonna see.
Yeah.
I don't know when we see it. Do we see it in 2019? Maybe. Do we see it in 2020? Probably. And then after that, I don't know. It's too far in the future to tell. Predicting the future is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Long view, I'm not concerned. In the short term, I have no clue. But when you see these little bouts of FOMO, I mean, just extrapolate that out to bigger numbers and it starts to get really fucking wild.
Yeah, when you just say that, you start extrapolating, and she said it gets pretty ridiculous. Should we mention Jesse Colombo's tweet from the other day?
Yeah, definitely.
I think like you and I both follow him. That people don't know him, follow him on Twitter or just at least read his articles. He gets really good. He writes really good stuff. And you can find his stuff. He writes on Zero. His stuff will get posted on Zero Hedge, and he has his own thing. I think investment advisors, RIA or something like that. I can't think of it. Do you remember the name of his?
I don't. Real something.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like Real Investment Advisor or something like that. But I mean, he writes really good content. So we can find. And in the meantime, like as you said, as we said, predicting the future is ridiculous. But he gotta find his tweet because it's very good. It basically talks about what he's worried about. And I think he does a pretty good job explaining it. Here's one, actually, here's a good example. There is no means of avoiding the final collapse of a boom brought about by credit expansion. The alternative is only whether the crisis should come sooner as a result of a voluntary abandonment of further credit expansion, or later as a final and total catastrophe of the currency system involved. Ludwig von Mises. Is it Mises?
Yeah, it's Mises. I actually put that in my story the other day, that exact quote. It's awesome. If you haven't checked this out already, there's a free economics boot camp on the Mises Institute YouTube page. I went through it this past weekend. It's 6 videos. They're about a half an hour each. They give you the basics of economics that you would need to know more than 95% of probably actual economists out there. You'll know more than them too by taking this. Totally worth going through, and it rips through a lot of Austrian theory and it breaks it down to the fundamentals, and it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you're into Bitcoin, because it's going to make a lot more sense after you get through it. But that goes right back to the sound money angle, right? I mean, credit expansion is why we have the boom and bust cycle. And if we keep expanding the money supply, we're going to keep seeing it over and over again. And now we're at a point in history where that is coming up again. And we'll see what ends up happening if they raise rates or cut them and kick the can down the road. But I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, should I read this tweet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this tweet from Jesse Colombo, this is from March 21st. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people are going to die as a result of the coming global economic crisis I'm warning about. Yes, it's going to result in a die-off. So excuse me if I become livid when people just take the attitude of just trade it, bro. When I say tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people are going to die as a result of the coming economic crisis, that may sound crazy, but it's not crazy at all. Nearly 100 million died due to World War II, which was a byproduct of the Great Depression. And that's a perfect example. Like, for instance, World War I was roughly 16 to 18 million deaths. World War II was north of 64 million. So the scale, and as big as World War I was, World War II dwarfed that, And then you talk about what, post World War II, like right after the end of like victory in Europe, there's a lot of, ethnic cleansing, a lot of different things. So it's pretty crazy. And then it says,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just, no, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to finish off the rest of this little tweet thread here. Nearly 100 million died due to World War II, which was a great byproduct of the Great Depression. Which was a byproduct of the Great Depression. And what caused the Great Depression? A massive economic bubble that formed during the Roaring '20s. My point is that we are in the Roaring '20s now. My bubble warnings aren't a trading thesis. They're trying to prevent the collapse of our way of life thesis. Someday after the collapse, I'm going to tell my grandchildren that people at the time, i.e. now, were so preoccupied with trading that they missed all the signs.
Yeah, I'm going to tell my grandkids that I was holding Bitcoin and I watched the whole thing happen and it was hysterical.
Damn, that's mean.
Nah, here's the thing. I'm more optimistic than Jesse because I think we're going to have a better solution to kind of work our way out of this mess. And I think we're in for tougher times ahead, but I've never been more optimistic because I think there's actually a solution to the problem. If we weren't going to solve the money problem, then we're just going to keep getting ourselves into this mess anyway, and it's not going to be fun for anybody. But now we actually have a chance to solve the sound money issue and get back to a free market that should work out exactly as it should be and let all of the malinvestment wash away from the market, and all of the great businesses will thrive and flourish, and there will be a lot of human flourishing when sound money is restored. So I'm super optimistic. I think Jesse's he's being more of a realist here. He's definitely concerned, as he should be, as everybody should be, with what's going on. But I don't know that he thinks a solution exists to the problem. He's just gonna, do what he's got to do to survive, which everybody's got to do. But I don't think he believes that an actual solution to the problem exists. Like, you just have to let it collapse and start over. But I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to get there.
Yeah, I think you're definitely more optimistic than I am. But I mean, everyone sees things differently. And I do agree with you on some things. It's just, I think the hardest thing though, with what's going on is like there's the whole geopolitical tensions. And the thought of a financial crisis can really stress things. And as important as Bitcoin is, and as big as it is, it could become. It's hard to, acknowledge that what would happen in the event of a serious outbreak of war or just big financial issues. Like if major banks have issues or something, we have something similar to 2008, 2009. That becomes a real big issue. Like no matter what. Like there just isn't enough people on Bitcoin right now or using it, that it would become a major issue.
Yeah, it's definitely not prevalent enough. And I think that's why it's a timing issue.
Yeah.
So if you have a skyrocketing price of Bitcoin, hopefully that's driving adoption. You're getting more people onto the network. You're getting more clarity around it, whatever, more adoption and other places in the world, maybe not the United States. I think we might be last. And then couple that with, defaults, other things, real estate prices decreasing substantially, more layoffs. People are going to start thinking very carefully about why these things are happening. And hopefully they turn to Bitcoin or something else, or education or learning a new skill. But it just depends. We'll see. In hindsight, it might look obvious. I don't know. We're going to have to get there first and see.
Yeah, who knows which way it's going to fall. I mean, as you said, like we're predicting the future and that's impossible. But I think Columbo says, like, the economic boom we've seen in the 2000s in this period has been completely driven by shit. And that's what people don't understand. Like, this whole economic boom thing has been fed by, an increase in the money supply, and we keep seeing it. And then when you look at growing debt, and there's just so much debt, and you look at so many different areas, and then you look at, like, corporate bonds is a great, there's so many that are triple B that are just rated just above junk, that are just about to jump to, like, high yield bonds, basically. Like, there's so many waiting on the edge that are just, if they get downgraded, it's a whole different ball game, and that's can all happen in a second. I mean, things can go to real shit. Like think about Bear Stearns, like went from like I think like it was a $50 stock to like less than $2 or something like that in 5 days. Like there was a whole thing behind Jim Cramer apparently. Like said Bear Stearns was a good buy, and a week later it fucking went to $2. So
Yeah, he did the same thing with Lyft, and he got wrecked. And somebody tweeted about him fucking up on the Bear Stearns call, and Lyft, and called him out. And I'm just thinking to myself, there are people, and I know this because people who I've talked to at work were, talking about stocks, equities, investing, that shit, and they're, telling me what Jim Cramer said as their investment theses for picking certain stocks. And at the time, I probably didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe sure, Jim Cramer, maybe he seems like a smart guy. He's from Philly, I like him. Now I'm like, what the fuck, man? People who are getting all their information from like this mainstream are very misinformed about a lot of stuff. So you can just tell nobody does their research anymore. They're getting headlines from whatever. They're reading 10 fucking email newsletters or whatever, and thinking they're like a professional investor on the side. And it's not. Everybody's just going to get so wrecked.
Yeah, there's very few people on CNBC, but I'll say that Carter Worthington guy, he's like the chart guy for CNBC. He's actually pretty good. He actually knows what he's talking about, and so it's good to see that in CNBC. He's like a realist, which is pretty good.
I don't know that I've ever seen him, but
they call him like the chart guy. He's like I think blondish hair, like probably 40, something like that. A little bit heavier side, but he makes some like pretty good like comments and stuff like that.
Are you saying you don't think he eats only meat?
Yes. I think he has a few donuts here and there. Maybe enjoys the milkshake. I don't know. I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, here's Lyft. He doesn't look too pretty right now. And I imagine it's only going to get hit harder. Obviously, it's stuff rallies, but you can see the selling here was just intense. And once it starts selling again, they'll get more intense. So.
Yeah, Monday's going to be a really interesting day now that we're kind of talking about it. I didn't even think of that tomorrow's Monday.
Shit.
Lyft is getting interesting. I don't know who's going to wake up and want to trade Bitcoin tomorrow, if anybody is going to be buying. I don't know. I don't know what happens tomorrow, but I'm excited for it. And the next couple of weeks, just for all markets in general, will be very interesting to watch. Or it'll be really fucking boring. Nothing happens. We move sideways, and we have nothing to talk about for 2 or 3 weeks again.
I hate to break it to you, but like everything's gonna be moving shortly. Whether you're talking like oil. Oil's made a pretty good run back up. I'll pull that chart in a second. Like the S&P here, we're not going to hang out here. We're either going to break out. It's like there's the thoughts of either we complete the shoulder and it's fucked, or this is like megaphone pattern going on, which is pretty interesting. I guess, I clicked the wrong button here, but there we go. Yeah, you're hearing me get angry at TradingView. But it's pretty interesting. Like, I think there's a possibility we get a new high here. Just looking at the strength of this run here, we could get a new high. But that doesn't mean we're good. Like, what happens, you get a new high, it's going to bait a bunch of, like, new money in. The end of the retail. It'll be the end of retail trading, dude. That's what's going to happen. All the noobs on fucking Robinhood are going to hop in and buy stocks because they're getting new highs. And that's going to be it. Like, so that's it. We're going to make one more high.
I'm thinking about doing a podcast a year from now and looking back and saying, like, yep, like the Lyft IPO, the Uber IPO, those were just total signals. Peak trading on Robinhood was just like such a sign of the top. You had bird fucking scooters all over the place. It reeks of fucking cheap credit and VC backing and really weird business models that I'm not 100% sure of. Yeah, that's what I think, man. Yep. I think hindsight's going to be so obvious, as it usually is.
Malinvestment.
Yeah.
Like...
I was trying to explain well, I was trying to talk about malinvestment to somebody who had DM'd me, and I was like, you got to understand, like, these businesses wouldn't exist otherwise if we didn't have credit expansion. No one would ever choose to invest in these things because they're not good ideas. And I don't think that part clicked when I was trying to explain that. They're like, oh, well, businesses need investment. How would the economy ever expand if there wasn't credit? And I'm like, fuck, man. Like, they really got you. You really believe that we need debt and credit in order for the economy to grow, or else it goes to zero. Nobody believes it. And that's just full indoctrination of being taught the wrong economics for a long time. And it pisses me off because I went through the same problem. I'm coming to the realization of this today, and that's why this podcast exists, because I want to talk about it. I feel like Trump. I'm going to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk it. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it.
Oh God.
Oh yeah. My God, dude.
I mean, this is where it gets scary. It's like, okay, so you make a new high. It's gonna, all the retail traders are gonna just pile in as professionals, unload, and then it's just gonna be the end. It's gonna be the end of it. I mean, look how vertical we've went since the end of December. Like, we've gone vertical, but like when you look at the sell-offs are ridiculous.
This guy in the office was saying, he's like, oh yeah, best first quarter, ever, thinking that was like we're riding off into the sunset. He's getting close to retirement, so he wants his bags to pump. I get it. I would want your bags to pump too.
Like,
I just don't know that. Like, the fundamentals are meaningless. It's, CNBC's on in the lunchroom. We check it out, and he's like, oh, S&P is up, a couple points. My retirement's still looking like I still get to retire. And, I hope you fucking do, man, because shit could get out of control in the next 24 months, and you're still going to be working, buddy. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, that's it's the sad reality is, like, this could go south so quickly. Like, right. I don't think people realize how quickly, like, the system fell apart in 2008. And that was, like, this whole time, this has all been propped up by central banks. I don't think people realize, like, the rally on December 24th was fueled by an extra trillion being added into the, liquid, injected into the, monetary system by the People's Bank of China. That's like the whole rally here. And like, people don't realize that's like, and so that like also makes me question, this whole crypto rally. We're going to see what we saw at the end of 2017, where crypto popped all of a sudden out of nowhere, like not out of nowhere, but just really went vertical. And then, you had basically the equities all peak at the similar time frame in the U.S. market, where basically equities peaked with crypto, and then U.S. market was the last one to collapse at the first week of February. I mean, it's going to get interesting soon. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, look at this. Like, that 2-week period here at the end of January into February wiped off like 8 weeks, 9 weeks of, what happened. And the question is here, do we see like 1-2 week candlestick cover a full 4 months of, time? Like, that would be painful. And there's no getting that back like that. Like, that would be, like, if we shed 20% in a 2-week period, that would be deadly, very bad for the market, obviously, and people.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be fun. And somebody had actually DM'd me and had said, I think if we see a recession, that money isn't going to exit to crypto or to Bitcoin. And I agree with him in a sense that a lot, the average person's not going to think, oh, the market's going to shit, I'm going to take my money out and buy Bitcoin. It's a slim to none kind of a thing. But you do have now a ton of hodlers who are fucking stacking sats every week, and they might even up it if the market's going the other way. So you have this really small subset of people who are buying the dip and fucking just stacking sats and drying up that supply.
Yeah, it's a real thought there. I mean, that's pretty, that's what I don't think, and the only thing that, disadvantage Bitcoin at this point, as I mentioned earlier, is really just the adoption. That's it. Is people knowing how to, buy it, use it, whatever. Because this, as I said earlier, like the way the system collapsed in 2008, the thought is like if that happens again, it doesn't matter because people can't buy Bitcoin. Then that would be the hardest thing. Would be for the average person to be able to buy Bitcoin. How do they do it? The banking system's all screwed up.
Right. No, that's a really good point. And I think the lesson learned there is buy before that happens, because if we're under a fucking existential crisis, you're going to want to have some Bitcoin prior to that. So anybody listening to this, be a good steward of Bitcoin and help your friends and family and loved ones when they come asking you how to buy it, store it, and secure it. You have to be their go-to person. This is like going to be some grassroots shit.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's so we can. There's so many different ways this can play out, and that's what like really gets interesting here. Is if central banks don't save the market, then you're just gonna see they're gonna see a lot of companies disappear. The whole startup thing's gonna just vaporize into thin air, and then you're gonna see like for instance equities will just shed value on like none other. Like you'll just see just a giant deflation. Really is the way to put it.
Right. Yeah, it could get messy. I wanted to hit on some of the Q&A questions that we got.
Yeah.
Before I forget, the first of which is the halving, and the question was, talk about the next halving and how it will affect everything. Well, I have no idea how it will affect everything, but typically the halving events are in the middle or near the start of some sort of bull run. And whether that happens again next time, I have no clue. But when you think about the facts of what happens, the supply will be, the daily emissions rate of Bitcoin will be cut in half and will go to 6.25 BTC every 10 minutes. So that goes from, I think it goes from 1,800 a day down to 900 per day released. And by that time, I bet you fees are going to be way higher than they are today to cover the loss in block subsidy. And I think we saw that within the last couple of weeks that actual the fees were more than the actual block subsidy. So that's a good thing. We're seeing the fee markets getting really healthy, and that's exactly what we want to see. We want to make sure the miners are properly compensated for performing that function of verifying transactions. But the game fucking changes when the halving happens, and this one in particular, because I believe the annualized inflation rate would be 1.8%. So you're knocking on gold's door, and perhaps even lower than that. So I don't know if anyone will be valuing Bitcoin versus gold there in a sense of, is that even a comparable metric? I guess it's interesting to talk about. In reality, if it makes a difference, who knows? But the majority of the Bitcoin will be mined by then, like 87% or between 85 and 90% of all BTC will be mined and in circulation or in cold storage. So like there's not many left, and that will certainly have an effect on the price one way or the other. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, as you said, it's basically it comes down to price adoption here, and if you have a functioning monetary system, because at the end of the day, you just need fiat on ramps for Bitcoin to work at this point, because you got to think about basically everyone's on fiat monetary system, and that's
right.
And then you got to think about how many people really have Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's not many. We're talking less than 1% of the global population.
Yeah, it's a big. It's
a lot of people. It's a lot of people to onboard. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we saw the exchange system just completely collapse in December.
That's a good point.
Not even December. I would say November easily. I mean, even before that, you had issues, but like November, December, January, where they just stopped taking people. Kraken was down for like 6 weeks. I remember making memes about like the exchange being down when you were trying to buy. It sucked. Oh yeah, no, there were so many issues I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the infrastructure will be more robust this time around.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the next wave of FOMO we see, I don't think we're going to have as many issues of people signing up for the exchanges and dealing with all that bullshit. So I think that's better. I really hope that we have a very easy to use multi-sig wallet available this year and in 2020, and other plug and play nodes and lightning nodes that you can run at home. I think those are very necessary and are coming. I think that'll make it a lot easier to help with the onboarding process, because to use the latest and greatest features and to help with the network, you're going to want a lot more people running nodes. So I think we see that. A lot of people who have been DMing me have been asking me which node to order, and they ordered a Casa node, let's open up a channel. So it's definitely growing. And I think the more options, the better. So we need to see a lot of good competition in the plug and play node space, and that just the key management needs to get better, and it is getting better. You want to be able to use a multi-sig wallet, anybody, like just make it stupid simple. And I think we're going to get there. So that's going to be a project that we're going to work on in 2019 to talk about on the podcast, because it's super important. If we're going to sit and bullshit about Bitcoin all day, we might as well talk about the best ways to secure it and help people kind of learn that and take it seriously.
Yeah, we could just do one on like hardware wallets, paper wallets, web browser wallets, just give just a basis behind them and what purposes.
Yeah, and I've been like hesitating to talk about it because there's so many cool things in the pipeline. I don't even want to start at paper wallets if in the next 6 months using a multi-sig's cheap and easy. Like that's what we should be talking about. That's what people need to get used to. Mm-hmm. So it'll be sweet. I think there's a lot of great. I'm excited for Bitcoin hardware. Bitcoin hardware is awesome. It's a lot of fun. I like hardware.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
And what do you think, man? Should we wrap it up? That was pretty good.
Yeah, we could wrap it up here. That's a pretty good way to end it.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in to episode 14 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Shoot us a DM if you'd like to hear this on a different podcast app. I'm pretty much using only Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and it seems to be working out. But if anybody would prefer to hear this on a different platform, just let us know. Happy Monday coming up. Let's see what happens with the markets. It's next week going to be a shit show. Who the fuck knows? We'll see, man.
Yeah, it's all I know is these next few weeks are going to get very interesting. And I lean obviously more to the shit hits the fan type of thing very shortly here. And obviously a few weeks could turn into a few months, but I don't think it gets better from here.
Yep. So we're going to have a lot to talk about pretty much.
Yeah, we're going to be able to just keep recording podcasts on this